They said they had a great time. They smiled, laughed, asked questions, and even mentioned doing it again. Then the messages became shorter. The replies took longer. And eventually, nothing. If this has happened to you, you probably started replaying the entire date in your head. Did you say something wrong? Did they lose interest overnight? Or were they just being polite? Today, we're going to look at what may actually be happening when someone seems excited after a first date, and then suddenly disappears. Because one good evening does not always tell the whole story. Chapter 1. A good date is not always a promise. First, let's separate two things that are easy to confuse. Someone can genuinely enjoy spending time with you without wanting to continue romantically. The conversation may have been fun. The atmosphere may have felt natural. They may have laughed and meant it when they said they had a good time. But enjoying the moment is not the same as deciding to build a relationship. Sometimes people say, "I had a great time," because the date really was pleasant. And sometimes they say it because they don't want the ending to feel uncomfortable. The sentence itself is not enough evidence. The more important question is, what happens after the date? Do they continue the conversation? Do they ask about you? Do they suggest another day? Do their actions match the warmth of the evening? That is where the situation becomes clearer. Chapter 2, Reason 1, the connection felt good but not romantic. One possibility is simple. They enjoyed your company, but they did not feel enough romantic chemistry. This can be difficult to accept because the date may have felt completely normal. There may not have been an awkward moment. There may not have been an obvious mistake. Nothing dramatic had to happen. Sometimes two people get along well, but the connection stays friendly. That does not mean the date was fake. It does not mean you failed. And it does not mean there is something wrong with you. It simply means that comfort and romantic attraction are not always the same thing. Think about the difference between meeting someone you enjoy talking to and meeting someone you naturally want to see again. The first feeling can be warm. The second usually creates some kind of personal initiative. A desire to continue. A question about your next weekend. A suggestion for another meeting. Without that movement, a pleasant date may remain just that, a pleasant date. Chapter 3, Reason 2, they were polite in the moment. Another possibility is that they did not know how to end the date honestly. Many people avoid direct rejection because they are afraid of hurting someone, creating tension, or appearing rude. So instead of saying, "I don't think this is going anywhere," they say, "Let's do this again sometime." Or, "I had a really nice time." In that moment, they may not be trying to manipulate you. They may simply be choosing the easiest and most comfortable words. But for the person listening, those words can create hope. This is why polite language should always be compared with later behavior. Warm words followed by continued effort usually mean something. Warm words followed by silence mean something different. Not necessarily something cruel, but something important. Silence is often a way people communicate what they are unwilling to say directly. Chapter 4, Reason 3, they became uncertain after the date. Sometimes the date goes well, but the person still becomes unsure afterward. Maybe they liked you, but the connection moved faster than they expected. Maybe they felt pressure to decide immediately. Maybe they are comparing the experience with someone else. Or maybe they simply do not know what they want right now. Uncertainty can make people pull back. They may think about sending a message, then postpone it. They may write a reply, delete it, and decide to answer later. Then enough time passes that replying feels even more uncomfortable. This can turn into a cycle. A little hesitation creates a delay. The delay creates awkwardness. The awkwardness creates more avoidance. And eventually, the person disappears without ever making a clear decision. That behavior may come from uncertainty, but it still affects you in the same way. You are left waiting for an answer that the other person is not giving. Understanding the reason does not mean you have to accept unlimited uncertainty. Chapter 5, Reason 4, They liked the attention more than the connection. There is also a less comfortable possibility. Some people enjoy the emotional experience of being wanted. They like the attention, the compliments, the excitement, and the feeling of a new connection. But they are not truly prepared to invest in another person. During the date, they may be warm and engaged. They may create chemistry because the moment feels exciting. But afterward, they do not follow through. The key difference is consistency. Real interest does not have to be intense. It does not require constant texting or dramatic declarations. But it usually creates some repeated effort. A message. A question. A plan. A clear attempt to keep the connection alive. Attention can be immediate and exciting. Genuine interest is usually more consistent. That is why intensity should not be confused with intention. Someone can make you feel special for one evening and still not be ready, or willing, to build anything afterward. Chapter 6, Reason 5, The date was good, but life was not ready. Not every disappearance is about the quality of the date. People can be dealing with stress, emotional exhaustion, family problems, work pressure, or another relationship that is still unresolved. They may have enjoyed meeting you and still lack the capacity to continue. This explanation is possible. But it is also important not to use it to protect a fantasy. When someone disappears, we often create the most comforting explanation. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are scared. Maybe they secretly like me but cannot express it. Sometimes that is true. But unless the person communicates clearly and returns with consistent effort, it remains only a possibility. You do not have to decide whether they are a good person or a bad person. You only have to notice whether they are available and responsive enough for the kind of connection you want. Chapter 7, What should you do? So what should you do after a good date followed by silence? If you want clarity, send one simple and respectful message. Something like, I enjoyed meeting you. If you'd like to do it again, let me know. That message is clear. It shows interest without pressure. And it gives the other person an opportunity to respond. After that, pay attention to what they do. If they reply warmly and suggest a real plan, that is useful information. If they respond vaguely but never make an effort, that is also information. If they do not respond at all, the silence has become an answer. You do not need to send 5 more messages to make the situation clearer. You do not need to perform indifference. You do not need to punish them with silence. And you do not need to prove that you are worth choosing. One honest step is enough. The next step should come from them. Final thought. A good first date can be real and still not lead to a second one. The laughter can be real. The conversation can be enjoyable. The attraction can even be present for a moment. But what matters after the date is consistency. Do they continue the connection? Do they make space for you? Do their actions support their words? Because a pleasant moment tells you how the date felt. Repeated effort tells you whether the interest is real enough to continue. So don't judge the entire situation by one sentence at the end of the evening. Look at what happens next. Don't judge the moment. Judge the pattern. And remember, clarity does not come from guessing harder. It comes from watching consistent behavior. If you want to understand more about mixed signals, stay with Dating Club. In the next video, we'll look at why someone can show interest, become emotionally close, and then suddenly start pulling away.